Ladies and gentlemen, this debate will come to order. I'm pleased to welcome you all to the English debate in Geography Education and University of Education Indonesia. The topic being debated today is this House believes that school or offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. There are two teams representing the government side are Upit Wahyuni as the first speaker, Ghina Nurhanifah as the second speaker, and Amada Shakira as the third speaker. Speaking from the opposition side are Zalva Salsabila as the first speaker, Annisa Salsabila as the second speaker, and Firda Fahriana as the third speaker. And I, Ridwan Rehana, as your moderator in this debate session. Before we go to the debate, let me read the regulation. First, all speakers are given 7 minutes time for arguing each other for each session, except in reply session, each speaker has 5 minutes for telling the last argument. Second, for the first session, the first speaker of each group will introduce the theme and point out the reason of being pro or contra to the topic given. Third, for the second session, the speakers from each group will deliver the speech to express your opinion about the topic. Fourth, for the third session, the speakers from each group will keep up the arguments and make it stronger than before. 5, for the fourth session, the last speaker from each group will conclude your opinion. 6, all participants can give the argument with saying POI after 1 minute in all sessions, except in the fourth session. Lastly, moderator will give a conclusion from those arguments by the two teams. So now let's start for the debate. First session will be start from the government team, about 7 minutes. For the government teams, the time is yours. 7 minutes start now.
Okay, thanks to the moderator. Good morning to Sir Chapubat as a lecturer, and good morning also to all my friends. Before entering this debate, allow me to introduce myself and my team. My name is Upit Wahyuni as the first speaker. Then there is Ghina Nurhanifah as the second speaker. And lastly, there is Amada Shakira as the third speaker. We are on the pro side in this debate this time. We will argue that this House believes that school or offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. Pandemic COVID-19 is a pandemic that haunts all countries in any part of the world. This pandemic paralyzed some sectors, starting from the tourism sector, the economy sector, even education sector. As the first speaker from the affirmation team, I will be pointing out that the education system has suddenly changed completely, using online learning systems through their respective homes are commonly called online school. Starting from the end of March 2020, schools in Indonesia began to hold online school activities due to this increasing number of COVID cases in Indonesia. It has been almost 2 years running online school. Making progress in the use of technology in the education sector is increasing, but still as the technology, most of the community, students, and educators still want learning activity as usual, face-to-face. This is due to educators still want learning activity as usual, face-to-face. This is due to the many things that are difficult to regulate when doing online learning. Every start of the semester, the government always strives to conduct learning activity daily, but remains under supervision and follows health protocol imposed by the Ministry of Health. Evidently, at the beginning of the semester of the 2021/2022 school year, some schools began to conduct face-to-face learning directly, using new systems such as the implementation of sessions for students who follow face-to-face learning and conduct COVID tests for all school residents after doing face-to-face activities within a certain period of time to see if there is a spread of COVID in the school environment or not. So, does this motion have to be implemented or not? The motion on this House is believed that school or offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. Of course, it still has to be implemented because offline school can be implemented again even though it is still in the global situation of COVID-19 pandemic. Why not? This, of course, can be done when all elements of society can support and succeed with the noise of this offline school again. At this debate, we from pro-party want to argue that we are agreed that offline school can still be restarted this year, even though it is still in the global situation of pandemic COVID-19. Firstly, by using hybrid or combined method, making students able to do learning both in offline situation in school or online from their homes. Secondly, and with the eviction from the relevant parties regarding offline school held by the trial second. With the start of the pandemic, then the school conducted online learning, and then there were some problems that arose due to this online school, then held a trial for some school to conduct face-to-face learning or offline school hybridly, and in the supervision of education, health, and so on. So that the start of the return of offline school this year is certainly happening. Although it is still in the trial phase and not all schools in Indonesia have started to re-implement this offline school. With this, the conclusion of my opinion is that the re-implementation of offline school in this year can certainly be implemented, although many things should be considered and adhered to so that in the future, offline school activity will be carried out as usual, without strict rules, without any hybrid system. And with this, me and my team, Ghina and Amada, started that we are on the pro side. Thank you.
Thank you for the first speaker from government team. We still have time. Will you add some argument in the session? Thank you. We go to the first session from the opposition team. From the opposition team, your time is 7 minutes. Start now.
Okay, before I start to deliver my opinion about this, let me introduce our team. I'm Zalva Salsabila, and I'm first speaker for the negative team. Our second speaker is Annisa Salsabila, and the third speaker is Firda Fahriana. Next, I would like to tell that we as negative team don't absolutely agree that school or offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19. Indonesia is one of the countries who has been infected by COVID-19 disease, or we can call COVID-19 is corona disease, is an acute respiratory syndrome, so that it has an impact for all society, and one of them is us Indonesian students. And for the consequence of this pandemic, the government has implemented various policies to break the chain spread of the COVID-19 virus. And then the Indonesian Ministry of Education also issued a policy that closed school and changed the process of teaching and learning activities with using online learning system. However, using this online learning system is causing an ineffectiveness in the learning process. So for this year, the government issued face-to-face regulation from some educational stage in Indonesia. And honestly, that it is in interesting angle because I'm a student in college. I think implementing face-to-face learning is suitable to be applied in all educational stage because of the urgency and consequence in every application is so different. Furthermore, the flexibility caused by the online learning system makes society from all over Nusantara is interested in continuing their studies in higher educational stages for more and more. So, encounters between teachers and students are no longer limited by space and time. Learning activities can be carried out for the same time with a different location, or also can be carried out at different time and different location. And then the preparation government for organizing face-to-face learning activities is not maximal because vaccine stock is still limited and vaccine distribution are not evenly distributed all around Indonesia. Moreover, the government also still depends on PPKM policy every week, which makes people confused about it. For another important point why we not agree with face-to-face learning for this year, you all can see that in this year or in 2021 years, COVID-19 cases in Indonesia, there are frequent fluctuations and still unstable for every month. Then there are some cases which are students and teachers who were exposed COVID disease after doing face-to-face learning process. So I have one question to you all. So should we put our health at risk for doing face-to-face learning? Even though today there is vaccine, the vaccine is still not fully granted for our health. And you all know that vaccine for minors were distributed on this December, right? Whereas negative team is absolutely not agree with statement that has been conveyed by affirmative team before. For the first point, based on statistical data, COVID-19 cases are still increasing for every month. Plus, there are cases of the entry of a new variant of COVID, and the name is Omicron. And second point, hybrid learning models need a long adaptation so that the learning process can be effective as were expected. And then the guarantee of health protocols at each school is still doubtful because there is no certainty that school provide for students. So parents are doubtful and worried for their children will return to school. Although face-to-face learning will be done on a limited basis, the risk of infection of COVID-19 will be higher when children go to school compared to when they study at home. If they are not monitored, their children may be negligent to apply their health protocols while at school. And based on data released by Ikatan Dokter Anak Indonesia atau IDAI on June 18 in 2021, evidently one on 8 COVID-19 patients in Indonesia are children. That is reasonable if all parents feel worried about this. As the conclusion from my statement before, the implementation of offline school in this year is still not exact because we can see from data on the Ministry Education and Culture that almost 50% of schools in Indonesia are still not ready to carry out the face-to-face learning process. The government is also considered not to be serious in this matter because there are reports that supporting facilities and infrastructure for mitigation of the spread of COVID-19 are inadequate, so that can cause risk of COVID-19 infection, or we may call school cluster. So me and my team also state that we absolutely disagree with offline school for this year. Maybe that's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the first speaker from opposition team. Now we go to second session. For the second speaker from government team, your time is 7 minutes, starting now.
Good morning, my name is Ghina Nurhanifah, the second speaker of a government team, and I believe that school offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19, because the increase in COVID-19 cases can be suppressed by giving more intense vaccination. Vaccine can be encourage herd immunity, which is if someone is exposed to a disease, the antibodies will work to protect him. So the virus will not spread wider and the chain of transmission can be broken. For example, if 80% of the population is immune to the virus, 4 of 5 people who are exposed to the disease will not get sick and will not spread the virus more widely. And in this way, the spread of a disease can be controlled. And this is evident in the decrease in COVID cases in the country after the spike in cases in July 2021. And about for hybrid learning, its method can be the solution during a pandemic because after all, face-to-face learning is important to implement. In carrying out hybrid learning, the government can monitor school readiness and provide strict sanction for schools that do not implement the protocol properly. Besides that, the government has also opened a vaccination program for children aged 6 until 11. And based on the data, the coverage of COVID-19 vaccination in children has reached more than 80%. So this can be a consideration for offline schooling. Vaccination can reduce the risk of children contracting the coronavirus from the surrounding environment. And giving vaccine can be the main protection for children to be able to do activities safely. In addition, children can also enter public space that requires vaccination and can participate in face-to-face learning. Thank you.
Thank you for the second speaker from the government team. You still have time. Will you add some argument at this session?
I think it's enough for me.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to the second speaker from the opposition team. For the opposition team, your time is 7 minutes. Start now.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning all. I'm Annisa Salsabila from opposite team in second speaker. In addition, in Indonesia, the increase in COVID is increasing, so I don't agree that offline schools will be held in this year. Even though some people have been vaccinated, it is possible that the people who have been vaccinated will contract COVID or other disease again. We all know that vaccination is not the only way to stop the spread of COVID-19, but to increase immunity, not to kill the virus in the body. For this hybrid learning model, it really requires adaptation for a long time and cannot be directly effective in teaching and learning activities. In certain schools or schools that apply this hybrid learning model, especially the consequence that will be received from this learning model with the new cluster being created, considering that children who need direct supervision are not only 1 or 2 students to be able to wear masks and maintaining distance or apply health protocols. Plus the fact of that, especially at this time, cases of COVID are increasing again, followed by a new variant, namely Omicron. Based on statistic data, the Omicron variant has a large number of mutations, some of which are worrying. WHO describes preliminary evidence showing an increased risk of reinfection with this variant compared with other variants of concern or VOC. According to the journal, that the vaccine available in Indonesia are less qualified in the currently distributed Omicron variants, such as the Sinovac vaccine, Pfizer vaccine, Moderna vaccine, etc. Instead of frightening all of us, especially students who are bored with distance learning, would want to do face-to-face learning, but the current situation and condition do not allow us to be able to carry out these activities. Even though they are carried out, they will not be effective, in my view. So that's why the reason offline is risk to be re-implemented in this year. Thank you.
Thank you for the second speaker from the opposition team. You still have time. Will you add some argument this session?
Me, it's enough.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to the third session. To the government teams, let's start now.
Hello everyone, good morning. I'm Amada Shakira, the third speaker from the affirmative side. I strongly believe that in reality, the implementation of the online learning system is not as effective as we thought, and the effectiveness is too much different with face-to-face learning situation. That happens because the student can directly interact optimally in the learning process. But the interaction between teachers and student, as well as interaction between student and student in the learning process. The most dilemmatic things for parents is They witness for themselves how difficult it is for a child to have to go to school online constantly. Not only a matter of facilities, but also effectiveness of student absorption. Finally, in several areas, reports circulate that students who study at home prefer to help their parents work. The impact academically is that they will be left behind, and there are currently many assessment mechanisms that can be carried out. In the sense of school tests, in vocational school, internship are delayed. There are many problems in online schools. In addition to the laziness factors, there are other technical problems that make it difficult for children to follow online school. The credit quota assistance provided by the Ministry of Education and Culture is considered not maximal to cover the problem in online school, because many students in the outermost as disadvantaged areas don't have handphone. The signal there is a disconnect signal. Another finding is that the inner relationship between student and become cold because they have never greeted each other face to face for a year. It is the students who are in grade 1, the elementary, middle, and high school levels where they were registered as students for 1 year but didn't know who their teachers and friends at the new school were. If we let this and didn't resolve the impact, will be hugged. This generation can get the impact of learning loss in this condition. I might add the re-implementation of online learning can be implemented soon, because if we see the current case of COVID-19 has started to decline, the number of vaccinations given is quite high, also making several places, such as malls, markets, parks, etc., have started to open on condition that they have vaccination. Then this can, of course, also be applied in the face-to-face learning process. During the face-to-face learning process, of course, the school will implement a qualified health protocol because in general schools are under the supervision of the education office. Also, all students and teachers needs to be vaccinated first before. This can be a consideration for offline or hybrid schools. So, in short, we can apply the re-implementation of the face-to-face learning situation to resolve our problem in education, because we need to prevent the learning loss in this condition. Thank you.
Thank you for the third speaker from government team. You still have time to add some argument decision.
Enough, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Now we go to the third speaker from the opposition team. For the opposition team, your time is 7 minutes. Start now.
Okay, I'm Firda Fahriana as the third speaker from the opposition side. As we know, during this pandemic, there is no single situation that is 100% completely safe from the transmission of COVID-19. And it should also be remembered that the transmission of COVID-19 does not only occur in the classroom or school. Face-to-face learning, one of which is a place for transmission of COVID-19 itself. Even though it has been vaccinated, I explained earlier that vaccination is not the only way to stop the spread of COVID-19, but only increase the immunity. The risk when students interact with teacher in the school or classroom environment is very high because not a few schools have closed room design. Student and teacher interact a lot with many people inside or outside the school. And if the teacher or student is in a closed room, the spread of COVID-19 is very high and the risk of being infected is very random and cannot be predicted. Even though many have been vaccinated and public spaces such as parks, malls, and etc. have been opened, it is not possible not to contract COVID-19 again. So many parents are worried that when school reopen, the spread of COVID-19 will result in classroom and gathering in one room for hours. According to the article I read, the open space for the spread of COVID-19 is so small. So many parents invite their children to travel to open space to minimize the spread of exciting COVID-19. And if school reopening will cause more interaction between community members, children will see their friends at school, and teacher will be out and more often traveling to gas station and then into the classroom. Parents, bus driver, cafeteria workers, and janitorial staff will all have increased exposure to the virus and will all be circulating throughout our communities and an increased rate. This will be led to a higher prevalence of virus in areas near school, which is pretty much everywhere, right? If the school reopen, COVID-19 will spread no matter how many masks are distributed or temperatures are taken. We know that this virus can be transmitted before any symptoms, including fever, are shown. The required social distancing is not developmentally appropriate for young children, and children will not be able to meet this expectation. Elementary students in particular do not yet have the self-control awareness necessary to follow social distancing guidelines. Attempting to force a student to behave like automation when they know the consequence of virus could be deadly for them, their friends, or their family is a recipe for anxious, happy, and fearful children. Furthermore, many students have disabilities that make it impossible for them to successfully follow social student guidelines. And finally, I will remind you again that even if students do social distancing perfectly, the masks do not prevent infection. They reduce risk. The virus will still be in the air. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the third speaker from opposition time. Thank you for the third speakers from the opposition team. You still have time with you add some argument decision.
Enough, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we go to the reply session. I remind you not to adding any or new arguments again in the session. The session will start from opposition team. For the opposition team, the time is yours. 5 minutes, start now.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we from the opposite team absolutely do not agree with the motion is offline school held in this year because we can see from data on the Ministry Education and Culture that almost 50% of schools in Indonesia are still not ready to carry out the face-to-face learning process. Even though some people have been vaccinated, it is possible that the people who have been vaccinated will contract COVID or other disease again. Especially at this time, cases of COVID are increasing again, followed by a new variant, namely Omicron. The risks when students interact with teacher in the school or classroom environment is very high because not a few schools have closed room design. Based on statistic data, the Omicron variant has a large number of mutations, some of which are worrying. WHO described preliminary evidence showing an increased risk of reinfection with this variant compared with other variants of concern or VOC. So that's why the recent offline school is risky to be re-implemented in this year. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the government team. Next, we go to thank you for the opposition team. Now we go to the government team. For the government team, your time is 5 minutes. Start now.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that school offline learning is starting this year despite the global pandemic of COVID-19 because we know that face-to-face learning is very important. And online learning will not be as effective as direct learning, as my partner said before. And many weaknesses are felt in online school. So we think that the hybrid learning method makes the student able to the learning both in offline situation in school or online from their homes, so that it can be a learning solution during a pandemic. Saying the declining number of COVID cases and the high number of vaccine, it is hoped that this will reduce of transmission of COVID in school. And as I told before, based on data, the coverage of COVID-19 vaccination in children has reached more than 80%. So this can be a consideration for offline schooling. And as per the fast-to-fast learning process, school must implement strict health protocols by limiting fast-to-fast learning, vaccinating beforehand, and providing good air circulation. Thank you.
Thank you for the government team, and thank you all. Thank you for all the teams who have gave the opinions for this debate. Let me conclude all debate today. From this debate, we can conclude that actually every individual must be responsive to the limitations during the pandemic to remain productive in their field and interpret this pandemic condition as the part of the change that still must prioritize representative attitudes and behaviors in their new order create varied learning spaces. In the end, this study confirmed that every change in learning system can design new conditions as a distinctions with previous and future conditions. So each related element must be able to adapt to this change to realize comprehensive learning success. I, as the moderator, apologize if there was any mistakes in my speech or behavior or either intentionally or unintentionally. Thank you for the intention and see you next time in the next debate. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Guys, keren.